Firstly, I would like to thank you all for everything you have done for us. You have such a beautiful and strong community, and we feel your support all the way back in Israel. It really helps us a lot knowing that we have such good friends in this distant corner of the world. We all have a mission these days, on the front line, across the border, and across the ocean. We must stay united and stick together in these difficult times. Before October 7th, the community of Kfar Aza was blooming. Many young families moved to the kibbutz, many new houses were built, and many young babies were born. Ophir Liebstein, the mayor of the Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council, who some of them you may know, used to say, living in Kfar Aza is 95% heaven and 5% hell. The people of Kfar Aza are peace-seeking people who never thought that something like this could ever happen. But on October 7th, the gates of hell broke loose. At 6:30 a.m. that morning, the alarms went off. I was alone with my two daughters as my wife was in San Francisco when I started receiving message about terrorists who had intruded into the kibbutz. Even though I understood it might be my last day, I still made the decision to leave my daughters with my neighbors and go out to defend the community. I ran to get my weapon out of the armory, which was already ambushed by the terrorists. Along with me, all 14 members of the emergency response team rushed to the armory, and unfortunately, 7 lost their lives during these battles, including Ophir Liebstein. They were all my best friends. Hamas managed to dismantle the force, and I found myself alone. I was moving through the kibbutz, and at some point, I was being chased by 30 terrorists. I found cover in a warehouse in one of the yards, and the terrorists gathered around me. Unaware I was there. I was sure I was about to get kidnapped, but then they split up and decided to enter the houses around me. I heard doors breaking, gunshots, and explosions. They kept moving from one house to another, and I felt I was surrounded by demons. The only thing I could think of was saving my daughters. I called my neighbors and told them to get out of the kibbutz. They got into their car and by some miracle managed to escape. We were alone for hours. I couldn't believe what was going on. It was apocalyptic. But as I sat there, I felt that God was not willing to let this continue. I felt that He was about to reveal Himself to stop this massacre. Although God didn't reveal Himself that day, He did send angels to help us. Slowly, help started arriving. A few civilians, police officers, and army soldiers entered the kibbutz. It was a battle of a few against many. But despite that, the mass killing of civilians has stopped. Several hours later that morning, major army forces started to arrive. The terrorists had positioned themselves inside the houses and on rooftops. The soldiers fought heroically, slowly clearing the kibbutz of terrorists and rescuing families. At that point, I realized that God is with us, and that the forces of evil could not overcome the good. Despite all the horrible things that happened that day, thanks to the first responders and the army that arrived at the kibbutz, Hamas couldn't complete their plan and a much greater disaster has been prevented. Unfortunately, 64 members were killed that day in the kibbutz. Among them were Guy Admoni, my brother-in-law, and Michal Admoni, his mother. Guy held a very sensitive position in the IDF intelligence, and we were very worried that he has been kidnapped. Eventually, he and Michal were found shot in the safe room, hugging each other. 19 people were kidnapped from the kibbutz that day, including women, children, and young and old. By now, 17 of them have returned, but Gali and ZV are still there. They have been there for 500 days. Together with them, a total of 73 hostages are still in there for 500 days. I witnessed the demons that are holding them captive with my own eyes. To our hostages, every second, every minute, and every day is a 100% hell. We cannot stop until they all return. Bring them home now. Thank you.